Oh man, I hate Mondays.
Nah, man, it's Tuesday.
Wait. What day is it?
You know what day it is? Tuesday. Brewsday, Tuesday.
Oh, fuck yeah. It's time for Brewsday Tuesday. Here's DreZ and Big Nate.
I
That
love that smell.
sound, that's a sound I got used to this past weekend. I can tell you that much. It is Brewsday Tuesday, brought to you by well, good beer. Good beer. And this time around, it's coming from a little bit of ways. So if we fast forward, or excuse me, rewind first. Let's rewind back to when I was in Columbus and I was looking for beer to have on hand for the weekend. And I happened to see that they had the variety 12 pack that we heard existed, hadn't seen it around these parts, but they had the Bell's. I guess you could just say it's the hearted variety pack, if you will.
I
So
think
there's
that's I think that's what they call it.
is it?
Yeah.
I don't know. I can't remember the box, but there's the regular, the two hearted. And then I just popped the hazy hearted IPA from Bell's, which is 7.5%. You have the regular one, which is it 7.5 as well?
It's
Or is it
just seven.
7? Okay.
The two-hearted IPA. Classic.
Yes. So I decided this one would be fitting because if you've ever had a hazy hearted or two hearted or any of the other ones, they're the Bell's logo on there for that is a nice little fishy. A nice little fishy, which, well, that was the goal of the trip,
It's the only fish you saw.
the canoe trip. So for those that don't know, I went on me and my buddies went on the annual Don't Bring Food 3-day canoe trip. You could bring beer and you could bring
Yeah, because you can't just catch beer.
no.
It's never been that lucky.
Luckily with the beer, you can catch a buzz, which was about as good as we could have asked for on this thing, man. So we were going into it with the utmost of confidence, having learned from last year's upgraded all sorts of things. I got a nicer cooler that'll keep cold longer. I got one of those Arctics, which is like kind of a
Yeah.
Yeti knockoff, a little cheaper, but does just as good a
Oh,
job.
great.
So I had that. I upgraded. I got a brand new fishing pole for my birthday, fishing pole in Rio, a Zebco 33. So I had that in my back pocket.
For the serious angler.
My Uncle Dan, shout out to Uncle Dan. He hooked me up in a number of a variety of ways. One being a bowling ball anchor, which he said it was great because basically you can throw that out and it'll just slow you down. You'll
Yeah.
still go down the river, but you'll go
Doesn't hook
slower,
on anything.
which was fantastic. Be it that the river was flowing, it was flowing and it was muddy. It was like brown because there was storms, those crazy storms earlier last week,
Yeah.
you know? So it was still kind of the remnants of all that. So so I had that. He also gave me like a minnow catcher to use. He also gave me some tackle stuff and everything. And I also got a brand new dry bag because my dry bag wasn't so dry last year. What else did I get? I mean, basically, one of the other things. So if you take in some water, you go through some rapids. My buddy Pete had a good idea. He asked if anybody has one of those like kind of squirt guns where you just pull. It's like a yard
I know
long.
someone who has some of those.
I do have one of those. So I brought that, which was definitely came in handy. It's so much easier to just take out a little water that way. And if you take
And
on a
fun.
lot, and if you take on a lot of water, instead of having to empty your whole canoe, pick it up, flip
Which is
it,
such a
do all
pain.
that, you can just and just squeeze it out like that. So that worked out good. But yeah, my buddy Pete, he went on Amazon and bought a whole bunch of crap. So he was all prepared. Basically, the whole weeks leading up to it, we're talking about how many fish we're going to catch and how it's going to be so epic and awesome. And of course, it was epic and awesome. But man,
What's the total?
those fish were not biting this year. Not biting this year. Like I said, the river was going fast, which made for getting over rapids and stuff easier because like not once did we get stuck on anything.
Yeah.
Any rapids wise. Like it was all just going. That being said, it's also just it's difficult to fish and canoe at the same time. Like you're moving so quick. I tell you one thing that the quickness didn't help with was so I had the bowling ball anchor, which every now and then it would get caught and we could get hung up and stuck and fish a spot. They brought just regular anchors. And with the river flowing so fast, man, it is not easy to unanchor
No.
in a canoe like that. So that became a little tricky. The first time I got stuck, my anchor got stuck. It was extremely, it took me like 10 minutes to get that thing unstuck. And I was like, man, am I going to have to cut this thing? Should I jump in the water and try and unloosen it up? Cause it's not my bowling ball to leave behind.
Yeah.
So, but luckily I did get it loose, and then you start to realize and figure out the tricks of the trade. But yeah, man, I mean, we were on the river. We started earlier this year. We wanted to not make the same mistake last year of doing this. We all stayed together at the same cabin, got up bright and early, 6 a.m. to load the car, have a little bit of food, and we were on the river and floating by, I think it was 9:15 a.m. We got into the drop-in spot, loaded everything up, and set off. And we were on the river Friday, gorgeous day too. I think it was just shy of 10 hours. That first float, we stopped a few different times to post up spots that looked good and everything and fished and didn't catch a single fish.
The whole trip or just the first day?
Friday, the first day, nothing to eat, nothing to cook,
Just
nothing,
beer.
just beer. We just drank beer. So we posted up after Foster Falls. That was where I tipped last year and didn't go so well, but no issues this year again. Maybe because the water was moving quicker. Also, this is probably not going to be the last time I say shout out to Uncle Dan. He gave me the advice of if you're coming across something kind of gnarly, instead of staying in your seat, you can get down like on your knees, and then you have a lower center of
More
gravity. You can you can balance it better because you have your whole legs, and it'll be easier to move the canoe. And every time I did that, no issues whatsoever. So that's my new jam. If it's something with a drop, I'm doing that just to be safe.
Makes sense.
Mm-hmm.
That's like, I don't know that I would think of it. I don't canoe all that often, but so no fish, just beer.
No fish. So we were just drinking beer and we just set up camp. We actually were an island over from where we stayed last year around the Foster Falls. So it was a bigger, I think it was a bigger camping area. It seemed like a bigger island too, and we collected a lot of firewood, but there wasn't that much. So there was a couple times that made a trip over to the island next door. Pete and Siegel did and brought back some big old logs and stuff. We didn't actually end up burning all. They got more than we needed, but had the fire going all night and just drinking and having a good time. And then we set off. And I think first thing that happened was Siegel's pole got snapped, got kind of hung up on a tree. And so that kind of sucked. And then not long after that, we went through some not as bad as Foster Falls, but a decent drop and stuff. I think Pete said he lost his beer, and I ended up having to bail out. Like started taking on water, so I bailed out of the canoe and then had to do that and get over to the bank and do that with the squirt gun thing, and so that kind of sucked. Also, my beer got wet, but not the end of the world. But then, yeah, man, we're just setting off and same thing all Saturday, just fishing. We did pull over to one side and set up for a bit. And I threw out the minnow trap with some catfish bait that Pete was bringing because he was trying to catch some catfish. He set that up all the first night and nothing. And finally, we caught a minnow, which, yeah, really, really exciting. I thought about it. I was like, if we get desperate, man, I'll eat this minnow. So we had the minnow. I pulled up the cage and I saw that there was a minnow in there. I was like, all right, cool. So then we were going to go string it up. And Siegel was carrying it over because I lifted it up and it seemed like it was dead after just being out of the water really quickly. So I kind of lowered it back in and he started moving. So I was like, okay, well, he's still alive. So Siegel's bringing it over to the canoe to put it on a hook or whatever. We could start fishing with it. And then he pulled it back out of the water, and it was gone.
Oh no.
It fell back out.
You lost our
Lost-
potential lunch.
Lost the one fish we had caught in all damn weekend.
Oh no.
So that was disappointing. The other thing that was disappointing was Pete, man. This guy just kept talking up about how he was going to bring his crossbow this year so we can catch whatever else. And I tell you what, there was no shortage of geese. We saw deer, squirrels, beavers, all sorts of stuff that if only
Food.
we had a damn crossbow. He
Oh,
said he had to get like 3 different licenses, and this and that, and it's so big. If we had a crossbow, we would have been eating good this weekend.
crossbow seems like one of those things you brag about having, but you never use it, is what it's sounding like.
It definitely sounds like that. In fact, that is what it was. I don't know.
You
Maybe
even have a crossbow?
I don't know. I've never laid my eyes on it. It could be just all talk, but he had enough room to bring a cot this year. Not enough room for a crossbow, but he brought a cot to go with his tent and stuff. So
Can't eat a cot.
can't eat a cot. Can't eat a crossbow either, but it can get the job.
You get food better than a cot.
Yeah. I'm trying to think of what else were some good highlights of those first
Do you guys
couple big
tent it?
floats.
Do you tent it or?
Yeah, I was in a tent. Seagull's got one of those little like 1-person tents
The
that's
pup
so
tents that-
small. And then Pete brought a tent. He didn't use it the first night. The first night he was like, I'm just gonna sleep under the stars. So he just set up the cot with his sleeping bag, and that worked out well. And although he did move it closer to the fire, I noticed when I got out of my tent in the morning.
Mosquitoes.
So, yeah, I don't know if that's mosquitoes or warmth or what, but the first night honestly, the weather for the most part was all very well. It got cold at night, but that's kind of good because it helps you to sleep. Yeah, absolutely. I probably should have brought more clothes for, when you're sleeping. I was sleeping fine. I wasn't cold when I was sleeping, but I didn't bring like long pants or anything. I had a hoodie, but I should have brought some long pants because in my mind, I'm like, oh, well, I'll just be by the fire, be near the fire, be warm. But when you're real close to the fire, it's like you're too hot. And then there's hard to find
There's
that
no
sweet
happy
spot.
medium,
If
yeah.
you have pants on, you can be closer and it's not as like
Oppressive,
scorching
yeah.
on your
Burning your
legs,
leg
which is-
hairs.
And shout out to Pete. He let me use a pair of extra pajama bottoms on the second night because
But
he
not
noticed
his
that I was
crossbow.
not his crossbow. No crossbow to use. So there was finally, we were inside of the island that we were going to take out at. And there was finally a fish caught. I'll delve into that and we'll talk more about the fishing and because we did end up eating that night. We did end up eating. We didn't go hungry on the second night, thank goodness. But before I talk about that, I want to go ahead and untap these beers, which honestly is what I credit. Because the first day, no fish at all. And then I realized I brought the hearted IPAs that have the fish on them. This is what I need to drink on Saturday. And it was indeed what I had in my cup holder when a fish was caught.
Now, did these actually make the trip down the river, or did you plan ahead?
I saved these because I
Yeah.
knew if I brought them, they would have all gotten drank and I wouldn't have had a full show's worth. So yes, these have been in the fridge here. This is not the actual beer that was floating down the river. Sorry. All those hazies, all those hardeds got drank. Like, for sure. And rightfully so, because this is delicious. I mean, you haven't had the bells and love.
Yeah, no one's.
That might even be
that
a 5 for you. Yeah. The hazy hearted, I do really like the hazy hearted. It's got a little higher ABV, and it's just like you'd like, man. It's the 2 hearted just with a little haziness to it. So it's optimal out of the variety pack. I do think this one is probably my favorite. So I'm going to give it a 4.5, maybe even a 4.75. It's a great beer, and I highly recommend. If you can find it, you should give it a try.
I did see it over at the Kroger down the street just the other day and almost picked it up, but I was in a hurry.
Mm-hmm. Oh, see, they did have
Kroger has it.
All right, good. That's good.
They
enough.
just got it like recently.
So another fun thing about this trip is very limited cell service, basically going down the river. And so we were limited as to what we were going to be listening to when we got to campsites. So I'm not too sure. I think the first night it was Pete who had Incubus playing. We listened to an album or two. So we'll play some Incubus because that was the first night. Then I'll tell you what we were stuck listening to basically the whole rest of the trip after this. So it is Brewsday Tuesday special canoe trip recap right here on 105.3 The Bear. We'll drink more hearted IPAs from Bell's after this. Stick around.